This is Blacklisted News Radio. It's the 17th day of August, 2013. My name is Doug Owen. I'm the senior editor of blacklistednews.com. And there's a lot of stuff to get into. A lot of sexy stories. Of course, this is the dog days of the Summer of Rage. We're seeing that play out in Egypt. We're going to be talking about that. We will get to that in moments. You can be part of this show. 512-222-3067 is the text line. And, of course, everything that you need to listen and be part of the Blacklisted Radio experience is at blacklistedradio.com appropriately. So we have the climate of fear. It's pretty crazy. Some of the stories that we'll highlight really have been paralyzing the American people. At least some of them, ones that are paying attention to the cable news networks that are primarily controlled by six monopolies, six corporations. So the NSA spying scandal has taken on many new twists and turns, and we'll get to those as well. But the media is hitting all-time new lows, not just statistically, but because across the board, whether it's MSNBC or ABC News, they are all going into the crapper. The media is definitely in panic mode, and there's a huge shift in media, how it's being dispersed. I talked about that a lot on Doomcast number 3 with Charlie McGrath. If you haven't had a chance to pick that up yet, you should go to doomcast.com and do so. We talk a lot about the media and the countering of the new social and alt media that we see now. Hillary Clinton talked about it. I mean, RT is getting more likes than CNN. There's a problem there when more people in the United States that are informed are watching Russian Kremlin-sponsored television. And let's be honest, it's better. That's the sad reality of it. So I do want to talk about Egypt just briefly because we have been redirected to the heinous crimes and the killing of not only innocents, protesters, activists, media as well. And there's a lot of profit being made. There's a lot of weapons that the U.S. government sold to Egypt. So when you see this, remember, we have enabled much of it. So I don't want to get into a lot of the wasted analysis because there's so many important stories like the rodeo clown that's dressed up like Barack Obama. Oh, yeah, this is the new Trayvon Martin story. This is the new Chick-fil-A divisive angle racist story to keep the people at each other's throats. I listened to Glenn Beck yesterday, unfortunately, not that he wasn't giving good analysis. It's just one of these stories that is used as a wedge, and it's a very effective one. That's why they use it, obviously, because Glenn Beck's talking about it, and I'm briefly mentioning it here on the podcast because I do think that the social aspect to news and the talking points is important to note because they are projecting a lot of memes and themes and agendas through the selection of news. And I do the same thing with blacklistednews.com. We direct you to certain news stories that we think are more important, but it just reminds me, it reeks, it smacks of the Chick-fil-A story. Remember when it was patriotic and political and maybe politically incorrect to eat a chicken sandwich? So we always have to have these kind of stories, of course. When it comes to the First Amendment, obviously, people had George Bush masks, and people cherished the mockery of the president because we enjoy the First Amendment. We think it's something that is a highlight, a hallmark of living in a free society. All of a sudden, you have a rodeo clown that puts on a Barack Obama mask. They're looking for racism, and they're finding it in the most odd places. But, of course, there's a lot of stuff that they're not talking about. We're going to get to that first. But the focus is now on Egypt and the perilous situation the United States and other Western backers are in when it comes to what's happening in Libya, what's happening in Syria, more importantly, the proxy war that is being waged right now against Russia through the LGBT community. I've talked about that a lot. It's ramping up. More and more gay rights advocates are going after Putin. And if you see the latest expose of Putin, he doesn't do himself any favors. He has this picture of him with his shirt off, trying to, I guess, project masculinity. And maybe I just don't know a lot about the Russian culture itself, and so I can't really speak to how that is received by the Russian people. Maybe they're like, oh yeah, he's super awesome. Look at him, he's tough. But for the Western media, it's a field day. It's an absolute field day, and the Barack Obama administration, the Democrats, are trying to reinvigorate their base and distract them from the fact that Barack Obama hasn't done much for the black people or the Democrats or anyone else. So it's all the better to focus on external issues and trivial things like guys that are rodeo clowns. And then the politicizing of this poor chap. And there was some Republican, I want to say Mitch McConnell, but I don't think that's right at all. That wanted to hire the guy, and the media just chews on these stories over and over again. They're so sexy, just like this one. And I knew it would resurface. Heathrow, of course, most of you, if you're living in this country or the Western world or have a television or just have picked up a newspaper, you might have noted that we are under immense terror fear here in good old Austin, Texas. They're doing terror drills all over the place, so you just never know when some false flag might pop out of the woodwork. I'm on the march. I'm watching, but you have all of these scenarios that are being projected, all of these fake terror scares. And I hate to say this. I mean, I think almost all of these are creations, manifestations of the state and state-run media. Here's one. Heathrow Airport, huge airport in London, biggest airport that they have. It was on high alert for booby bombs. Yes, they have returned breast implant bombs. So that's pretty scary. You never know when somebody could just explode. Spontaneous combustion. So you have to be on the lookout for that. You have to be vigilant somehow. I don't know how you remain vigilant and be on the lookout for that, but I'm sure that somebody is going to make a lot of money off of a new technology to monitor this. And all of these terror scares and mentions re-solidify the need, which is now, according to Barack Obama, the general need of the people. The consensus is that it's not about whether or not what the NSA and the private security companies that are working alongside them are, whether or not they are working within the boundaries of the Constitution. It's about whether or not they are within the values. Now, if you've been watching any of these speeches, I'm not going to play them, but they are nothing less than comp-outs on the nth degree. Nothing about the Constitution, the constitutionality, nothing about the Fourth Amendment will you hear Barack Obama mentioning. And that's because they carefully plan each word that comes out of his mouth, so much so that they very rarely let him go off of the script. So he's been out here promoting and propagating this terror hype. You've got all of these stories, just a barrage of ridiculous things that are happening. The shutting down of airports, embassies. Meanwhile, some pretty successful drone strikes were conducted by the United States government. I didn't mention that much, and maybe the Thai terror alert was because of what's happening in Egypt. And I'm just waiting for them to start to claim that what has happened in Egypt, they were well aware of, and somehow they used the NSA to prepare us for this. Anyway, it's nothing less than just a lot of theater. So I've got a lot of those stories. They're very compelling. They're low-hanging fruit, and people love them. But one thing that is not being talked about, and we did mention the Russian news network, RT, is TPP. Now, all of these stories that I've mentioned here, if you live in the United States or anywhere on the the continent, or even in Europe, if you're in a English-speaking nation, or even South America, I mean, if you're anywhere where you can understand English, you're probably getting your fill of crap information. But there's one thing that affects us all. I don't care if you're in Japan, Australia, South America. There's one thing that affects us all. It affects you directly, okay? And not just you, your family, your pocketbook, your future, your children's future, and no one other than RT is even putting this out here. So without further ado, I think this young lady does a pretty good job at explaining what is happening in the background behind all of this. All of that bullcrap is this. I say that. Here we go.
Did you know that your rights could be under fire with new regulation coming out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Most people didn't. That's the point. Most people don't realize that your freedom of speech, intellectual property rights, your ability to own and operate a website, all of these things are being discussed behind closed doors. Please tell us more, young lady.
Agreement. For those of us who may not have known, the TPP is a free trade agreement that's been in negotiation since around 2005. Now, these 11 countries involved could potentially turn into a single market, which means a monopoly on how business is conducted and what rules apply, particularly to the Internet. Now, one topic the TPP is negotiating currently, intellectual property rights, which could affect the digital world across the board. This negotiation would create rules that give media companies new power over the Internet. The TPP.
Okay, so that's very important. New power over the Internet. And the media is dying. I already mentioned that. So they are very interested in this, and they are working in concert, in collusion, in a conspiracy to keep you uninformed about these secret negotiations that mean much more than any of the stories. I mean, Justin Mash, that's a big story, what he's doing, this representative, but this goes beyond our representative government, and that's what the average American has a really hard time understanding. All of the political theatrics that we see, some of it's relevant for domestic policy, but this is much larger, and this is why we have almost no say whatsoever in what is being defined between not only our governments. I think that this is unconstitutional by several metrics, one of which is that we have our government operating in secret, our representatives working with other governments to create rules and regulations and laws for the American people and other respective countries. I mean, isn't that a very, very important issue that should be discussed? Shouldn't we be having a public debate? Let's talk about racism for a minute. No, racism is there. It's real. It's unfortunate. We could talk about it all day long, and people love to because it's easy, because it puts blame on people, and it has you shaming yourself rather than shaming your representative government. The majority of the socioeconomic problems that we have today, you can't blame them all on foreign policy or domestic economic policy, Federal Reserve policy, but you can definitely put people in the poorhouse. And one huge story that we have about the MERS system is that millions of homes were taken from American people because of not only LIBOR, but because of them being screwed by their mortgage companies. And that these mortgage companies essentially stole, combined, and sold these people's mortgages. It's a huge story. It's a theft beyond epic proportions. It's put many people on the streets. But most of the people, at least in the quote-unquote right-wing media, love to bash on the black people, on the poor people, on the lazy people that don't want to go to work, and how they are just a burden on society. And I'm not saying people shouldn't work. I think that that's an ethical issue for each individual, but societally, it is a strain, but it pales in comparison to the massive amounts of corporate welfare that are being used to entrap these people. I mean, the same people that are getting tax-free loans are the companies that are using their cash and liquid capital. Really, they just have debt credit, but they extend that to, poor people and charge them 35% interest. Usury to the nth degree, and it's deplorable. It is disgusting. So it's putting victims once again at blame for the fact that they have themselves been exploited. And I guess it's easy to do, blame the people that are exploited. I hear it all the time. People blame the rape victim. People do that a lot more than we'd like to admit. She was dressed too provocatively. It's your fault. Sorry, you needed that money and you shouldn't have got into that contract. I mean, sometimes the Voltaire side of me, the side of reason, always says, well, I mean, you two individuals should engage in a contract, and, well, shame on you for not reading it, but this is almost beyond that. It pales. It's parasitical. So I know I'm derailed from the TPP issue here, but when it comes to IP rules and new media rules, this is very important. This is going to be something that is, well, I think it's going to prove two things. Number one, that the media cannot control public discourse any longer, and it's very frustrating. We had John Kerry talk about this week, saying that the internet has become a nuisance. It's a pest. It doesn't allow governments to govern. All of you plebeians out there, you keep asking these ridiculous questions. You're trying to hold your government to account, and he doesn't like it because, he's a big, arrogant, rich a-hole. And he believes that he knows better than you. Well, even John Kerry, in his very elite position, doesn't get to discuss a lot of what's happening at TPP, and this probably affects him, although I wouldn't count him out of some of the backdoor negotiations, but we really don't know. That's the big problem. We don't know who's representing us. We don't know who is, and this is the really disgusting aspect. The only media that we are hearing about this, and the only discussions that are becoming public for the people to kind of chew on, is foreign countries that are part of the Pacific region, that are Japan. We're hearing a lot from the Japanese government, but almost nothing from the U.S. government. We're hearing a lot of from the Chinese government, ironically, but nothing from the U.S. government. So back to this.
Internet service providers act as a copyright cop, policing what information you share. Now, the concern is that TPP may ratchet up IP enforcement so much, which means digital rights here at home just may change.
That's right. Basically, they're going to start a racket where they try to track you down for playing a Depeche Mode track from 1983, and they want to hit you for $10,000 or take your Twitter account away from you. It empowers this new Gestapo. And this is what has happened. I mean, it's indicative of almost all of the new creation of jobs and value in this country. And I know that's a very subjective way to look at it. I guess I would consider it value because it's valuable. If you look at a derivative, it's a bet on the future that the government will be able to screw somebody or regulate some other company into helping them, whether it's a commodity stock. It doesn't matter. People are looking forward to something in the future, and it's a bet that you cash today. Okay, it's a hamburger today, and we'll pay you next Tuesday type of scenario. So
enforcement would favor special interest copyright lobbies, not the individual. It would lock out non-TPP countries into a copyright treaty that may vary greatly from the country's own IP rules.
See, we do have a little bit of a wild, wild west in the internet right now. You can go to some other country where they have different rules and regulations, and you can do different things in that country. Certain things go, certain things fly, certain things don't. In the United States of America, I can use my First Amendment to say things that are unpopular, that are not nice. I can be really rude, and I can be ignorant and a racist and an idiot and a protagonist. I can be all of those things if I want to. Not that I do, but we have the ability. When it comes to free speech, it's not about protecting kind and free and politically correct speech. It's about protecting the worst speech, the most horrible speech, the things that we all find to be somewhat disturbing. And it's not that you condone what they're saying. You condone the right. You defend the right for people to say those things, no matter how. In a adult society, rather than trying to use the nanny state and Big Brother and the government and the TPP, some international agreement to stop dissent, to stop the dialogue, okay, you just turn off the dial. If you don't like what I'm saying and you think that I'm just too radical, I want to give too many freedoms to the people, I give the benefit of the doubt to the people over the government time and time again, maybe that's too radical for you. Maybe, I believe that enough of us actually have the testicular fortitude and the brain cells between our ears to govern ourselves in a better way. And so when it comes to TPP, the American people are not going to get much of a say in what happens, but the consensus is not necessarily created in favor of some of the big players, and it happens to be the auto industry mostly, GM and others that are leaving Detroit on their way to, new prosperous nations to exploit cheap labor. It's all about oil and labor and slavery. Here's another clip I have from this other negotiations. So this also has to do with milk. Would you believe it? Yes, we have more and more milk police. We're going to have more and more copyright police chasing you down for listening to Dio. You know who I'm talking to out there, Jim. But it's also for milk and food patents and labeling and fair and effective labeling. Who wants to eat the Cambodian fish? Maybe you do, but you probably don't. And that's a big problem, because if you know what you're eating, if you know what you're getting at the store, then you have the ability to make a conscious and informed decision. And that's very dangerous. You think, therefore, you are dangerous to the state. And anybody that's not under the state's control is out of control.
Well, the Senate Finance Committee met today to talk about the opportunities and upcoming challenges the U.S. faces when it comes to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is a proposed free trade agreement that would involve nearly 40% of the entire global economy. TPP negotiations
Just think about that for a moment. Just think about that for a moment. The entire economy, 40% of the global economy. So this isn't just a U.S. issue or a Japanese issue, Taiwanese issue. It's a global issue. And the American people, and there's some milk-drinking bastards. People love some milk in this country, and they have no idea what's happening behind the scenes.
Well, the Senate Finance Committee met today to talk about nearly in other countries since the Bush administration. Now, U.S. lawmakers are expressing a desire to come to a final agreement by the end of this year. Japan is the latest country to join the negotiating table. The two senators at today's hearing expressed concerns over the country's participation in TPP, particularly when it comes to the auto market. Senator Bob Casey said that the Japanese auto market is nearly impenetrable for the American auto industry. Also, that in order the TPP for it to work, that aspect must change.
Japan's auto market is all but closed to our auto manufacturers, and I realize they've made some recent commitments, but I think we have to measure those and also continue to ask tough questions about it.
Now, another area of concern, the dairy market and New Zealand's alleged monopolistic industry structure. Now, experts at the hearing are concerned that the TPP agreement would cause a surge of dairy products in countries like Canada and Japan from New Zealand. So much so that the U.S. would not be able to compete with the New Zealand state-funded dairy production. Now, Senator Casey.
So anyway, you see that many of these other countries are trying to defend their people in their markets. Japan just doesn't allow U.S. cars, really. They sell more cars in one day in this country, Toyota, Honda, and the like, than the U.S. does all year long in Japan. And I don't know why you would want to buy a U.S. car if you're in Japan. I mean, it makes almost no sense to me, and I'm sorry if you're one of those people out there that just loves the Detroit steel, but the auto industry in this country, I don't know. I mean, people have different points of reference where they think that the U.S. automakers went awry. I would say sometime in the mid 70s is when they decided to really change. Well, and a lot of that had to do with the oil crisis, but they changed the whole body and structure and the mentality behind making products in this country, and that was moving and shifting into the more disposable 10-year platform. I mean, you want to pay off your car, but you don't want to have that thing too long before you have to buy another car because, hey, let's be honest, the auto industry is in the business of creating cars. The Japanese, they build a good product, and people like it. I own a Toyota pickup. I'm sorry if you think that's sacrilegious, but it's a great truck. No frills, but reliable and sturdy. And I've had so many U.S. cars, especially more late modeled from the 90s and the early 2000s, that were just clunkers. That were lemons. They were no good. Well, here in the United States, the dairy farmers, at least the ones that are participating in shipping dairy products globally, Borden, some of those big players, they do all sorts of interesting things to the milk, and all these new rules for the exportation of this milk could very well affect what's on the breakfast table for Americans because of the fact that they have to adhere to these regulations. So they probably wouldn't have two different processes for making milk that is compliant with the World Health Organization and other international and global bodies, and then those for the domestic market. Although they may. That's why I think that is really becoming one of the things that's hard to control, and that's the food markets, the organic and beyond organic push. So much so that now there's a commercial they're rolling out to defend aspartame. The powers that be, the huge multinational corporations, the big agra, they have to start telling you that high fructose corn syrup's good. They have to start telling you aspartame's good because people just don't believe it. Cancer rates are up. What are you going to pin it on? Some people are going to pin it on the fact that you drink soda water or some of the chemicals that are carcinogenic in the soda water. And we come in contact here in the United States of America, especially the guinea pig nation, the primordial soup of nuclear waste and other experimentation upon the public. I don't know anywhere else where so much technology, from nanotech to you name it, is being put into the food, and the American people's, our health is pretty piss poor, so you have to kind of wonder. So people start making some of those connections in their own minds. And like, hey, man, maybe all of this high fructose corn syrup crap I'm drinking gave me prostate cancer. Whether it's true or not, the people are starting to rebel and saying, "Ooh, this can't be good." I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I can tell you that if you eat tons and tons and tons and tons of sugar, it's probably not going to be good for you, and you might have problems. So people are starting to want to get more in touch with their food, and that's so personal, really. It's something that you put in your body. It's something that you fuel your body on. We're electrochemical and mechanical biological beings. And I can't think of too many things that should be more important to you than your food source. And I veer from that too. I mean, I've eaten tons of fast food that, especially, when I was younger, I had no interest whatsoever as to where it came from, because I just had this reasonable expectation that it was somewhat safe and it was not going to kill me, and that there might be at least a minimal amount of nutrition in it. Well, that doesn't pass anymore. People can, the internet is here. People can look at what's really in the Taco Bell food. It's disturbing. All right, so TPP is something that's not being talked about, and I think that we've given its due. It's got a quarter of this podcast, so we definitely have to talk about it with friends and family and expose this, because it's a fine example of how your representative government and the theater and talking points and bullcrap that most people follow on TV or in blurbs, in 5-minute news segments on radio, all of that is, some of it may be important, but most of it is not going to affect you. That's the important aspect to this. TPP across the board, from your food to your wage, to the amount of taxes you pay, to the type of vehicle that you can own. If you want one of those Japanese water cars, don't hold your breath. Okay, they're not in the business of selling those to the American people, and who knows how much of this is actually, with all of this intellectual property right control and consideration, is used to suppress technology. So I would say a lot of it. Cold fusion, that breaks up monopolies. It breaks up this little party of this international global syndicate. Those kind of things are game changers, X factors in the equation, and that's why these patent laws are so important. When you look at Freon and DuPont, done them well. R22, done them well. Time for something new. All of those old ones, you don't want those. Those hurt the environment. So now we have new patents on new products and new refrigerants that we can use. Oh yeah. It's a big scam. It's a big scam. And this is real government. This is the New World Order. This is globalization. And I know it's not the most romantic story. I've got other ones here, like the Hindenburg omens. If you haven't heard of the Hindenburg omen, okay, these are statistical indicators, analytical, algorithmic indicators that we see are people that are smarter than me, people that are in the market world see as potential crashes for the U.S. economy. So I'm not going to throw you any financial advice, but ultra shorting U.S. debt, if you believe the economy is going to be hemorrhaged by rising interest rates, it is the way to go. It's also something that people, I think ethically and morally, it's hard to do that, to bet against yourself. But that's what people do. We have an economy that is based upon generating revenue for the few beyond the 1%, the 0.1%. When that is paramount, you're going to have instability. You're going to have people that want to bet against human beings because, hey, we're fallible. We elect people that don't always do the right thing. So that's been freaking out a lot of people as far as the economy, and that remains really a highlight. And I'm not going to talk about it too much in this podcast. We've been putting up tons of news and analytics on the Hindenburg omen, but I did want to mention it because it is going into the basket of the summer of rage and the climate of fear and government ruling by crises. That's what's happening in Egypt. Martial law, okay, the institution of a military dictatorship. It's our government, apparently, though we give billions of dollars to Egypt annually, doesn't have to make a decision on whether or not this is a military dictatorship. But it's really hard to hide the elephant in the room, and so it's becoming more of this focus point. I did want to talk about this teenager that was denied a heart transplant over his history of non-compliance, because this story has made a lot of headway in the alternative media, and I think that there are some real takeaways from what we see here today. This came out of the New York Daily News.
A 15-year-old DeKalb County boy is in desperate need of a heart transplant, but doctors say he does not qualify. News since 6, this is video of Anthony Stokes in the hospital tonight as his family fights to change the doctor's mind. Channel 2's Tony Thomas is live at Children's Healthcare at Eggleston tonight with why the teen can't get on that list. Tony?
Well, the family's members say they've been told it's because of the teen's troubled past. Stokes remains in the hospital here at Eggleston. His family and civil rights groups are putting that pressure on, trying to change the doctors' minds.
So anyway, the guy had a couple run-ins with the law. Who didn't when we were kids? I think about that. Oh, yeah, he's a heathen. He doesn't deserve a heart. Yeah, well, notably, he's a black guy, and I'm surprised that the racist angle hasn't come out and that the media hasn't said that it's because he's black that he's not getting a heart. But there is a panel of unelected people that decide whether or not you get a heart. And that is the exact kind of Gestapo where you have the elite, where you have doctors and special people with special degrees and expertise in whatever it may be, that get to decide who lives and who dies. Obamacare, death panels, there already are death panels. This is a death panel. They decide if you live or die. They decide if you get a heart transplant or not. Now, this is a medical board that oversees this. And of course, these people are not elected. They do not, we do not get to judge them and decide if we think that they are good arbiters of who gets a heart and who doesn't. So we could just talk about this young man for a moment. Troubled past. He had bad grades in school. Should that be a consideration? Should his run-ins with the law, should that be a consideration for whether or not you get health care? Should it be a consideration for the type of health care that you have? And better yet, can he decide, or his family, if they want to buy a heart? Can you buy a heart on the market? I mean, we have billions of people. Something that's changing in China is their organ harvesting policies because nobody likes it. It's pretty cruel. It's hard to rule. It's hard to keep this veil of legitimacy where you're just chopping people up. You're chopping dissidents and other activists up and using their body parts and selling them on the black market. So at least they're purporting, allegedly, they're going to change some of these policies. But I just can't imagine them not having enough hearts out there. People die all the time, and how many people are unwitting organ donors? So anyway, I just think it's important to look at this because, number one, the media hasn't gone for the obvious, easy angle to project this racist agenda, which makes me question, what are you doing, media? This is your job to make this story an issue. And where are the Republicans? Where are the people that should be saying that this is a death panel? Okay, let's use that term because people don't like to use it. But this is what happens where you have the delegation of resources, when you have central government and central control, whether you like it or you don't like it. And I don't. This is the kind of governing that happens behind the scenes. This is the kind of decision making, and it's not democratic. It is absolutely a tyrannical dictatorship when it comes to the medical tyranny that we will be under. You don't get to choose anymore. That's the problem. So we've given up the ability to control our own health destiny. In return, we're going to get a bunch of crappy, subpar, reluctant care. And maybe, just maybe, if your politics and your criminal background and your maybe skin color, and let's be honest, in this country, beyond all of that, it's money. Money, 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 money. You can get most things done if you have money. If you're rich, you can get a heart anywhere. But this used to be the place where people that couldn't get a heart would go and get a heart. That is not the case for this young man. Maybe because of the media pressure. That's another takeaway from this, because of the shaming by media, by the blogosphere, by the New York Daily News and others. Maybe that shaming will guilt them into giving this young man a heart. But even that says, okay, that everything changes when perception changes. Even if they bow to the pressure, that proves that they bow to pressure, political pressure. If it's really as ethical and straightforward as they say that it should be, then you shouldn't have public opinion swaying who gets medical coverage, who gets medical compensation, who gets medical care, how much they pay for that medical care. Okay, that shouldn't just be a whim of the public. The public shouldn't just say, this guy sucks, and then the government said, yeah, you know what, you're right. You're right, people, because we just want to appease this crowd, this gang of people that are raging against the machine. So a lot of takeaways there. And the story, I think, really does highlight how we already have these systems in place, and they're only going to expand under this new electronic healthcare tyranny. Oh, by the way, if you didn't know, regardless of how many of your text messages to your loved ones the NSA is reading, how many times that they conducted surveillance against Americans and people in contact with Americans without the secret FISA court giving approval. I mean, the secret once you have secret government, it's gone. You're beyond. You can't really. You're beyond the ability to have a discussion because nothing's solid, nothing's firm, because we don't know. We're just all speculating. We're all hanging out in conjecture land. We just judge it by the fruits that it bears. That's all I can do. I look at Section 215 of the Patriot Act, the secret interpretation of all of it, and I just look at these people and I think, hey, they're scoundrels. They use political power and leverage to win. So why wouldn't they use this as a tool or tactic? Is that being a conspiracy theorist, or is that just being a good judge of character? You tell me. Am I crazy because I don't believe them? I don't know. If you think that, you're crazy because you do believe and you do give the benefit of the doubt. And I think that I, as a person, give people way more leverage than I probably should in most situations. I allow people to put the rope around their necks and let them hang themselves, because I believe, honestly, that people get to choose and make their own decisions in this life, and we're not here very long, so why waste your time placating and kowtowing to people that just don't care about you? There's no point in it. And I don't care if I could, if I could get off the fence and hop onto one of these teams, one of these sides, I could probably make a lot of money giving baseless commentary to sheeple. But that is just so, I don't know, vain, silly. What a waste of time. Anyway, I'm glad to see that some of the people out there have looked at what we're creating in this state, the climate of fear, the governing by crises, and saying, you know what? This is just not really making us any safer. Top security expert says treating everyone like a potential terrorist weakens our ability to protect America. Amen. I've been saying this since 2001. If you think that putting people into a database, everyone, for anything, okay, giving air marshals quotas to find terrorists, is going to keep you safer, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. You're not ignorant. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. When we have databases and selectively target people for arbitrary bullcrap reasons, and you think that that makes us safe, you're an idiot. You need to turn off this podcast right now and walk away. Walk away. Because logic, reason, and just general intuition is something that you lack. How can that keep you safe? Okay, if people taking a picture out of a window in an airplane get put into the terrorist watch database and they're scrutinized and those people are being chastised by TSA, your TSA official that should be, of course, keeping you safe and, well, you know, touching you and loving you and whatever they may be required to do by law. I don't know. Changes. TSA Viper teams, not just in the airports. Soon they'll be at your son's baseball game. Just making sure everybody's all right. Just want to cup a few of you. Just comping a couple fills to make sure that we're safe. If you think that that makes us safe, you're an idiot. But that's what happened in this country. So the TSA is busy chasing down, children and, opening people's diapers, whether they're old or young. That's what they're doing. Okay, so it really does make you a whole lot less safe. So Washington's blog quotes Bruce Schneiner. I don't know how you say his name here. Bruce. He's an internationally recognized security expert, unlike myself, who regularly writes for CNN, Wired, and other publications. So there you go. I mean, that's credibility right there. Schneider's blog was just listed by the Times as one of the 25 best blogs in the world. So apparently somebody's reading this. Schneider trounced the former head of the TSA, 87% to 13%, in a recent debate on airport security hosted by The Economist. So they had some of these questions that were posted by email. And, hey, I mean, if you get to throw questions at a top security expert with this kind of resume, I mean, why aren't you doing it? So Washington's blog asked the question, and here's a few of them. Many top experts, including you, have said that mass surveillance on Americans is harmful to national security as it makes the haystack too big to search meaningfully for bad people. Answer. Excuse me. As a layperson, it seems to me that the same is true with many of the other counterterrorism efforts since 9/11. Answer. Yes. For example, Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz calculates that the U.S. will end up spending $3 to $5 trillion in Iraq. A Brown University study actually concluded the Iraq war ended up costing $6 trillion, one of which I often quote. Yet the 9/11 Commission found that Iraq had no connection to 9/11. It's a non sequitur. There's no logic there. It doesn't make you any safer. We didn't go after the right people. Now, there's two types of people in this world. The people that said, well, even though we didn't go after the right people and we killed 1 million Iraqis and we got ourselves into $6 trillion worth of debt that we can't afford, that we had to buy from the Chinese, if you think that was okay because we thought we were doing the right thing, it was okay because we had good intentions, and there are those people. My mother, I love her to death, but she's one of those people. She's the consummate optimist, and I'm glad that I got some of that from her. We meant to do the right thing, Doug. We meant to do it. And she of course acknowledges reason that this is obviously not productive, and if you just put it down on paper, if you just look at it a little bit, you'll realize that we are actually making ourselves less safe. But it doesn't feel good to not be part of the team. Come on. You want to be on the team. The team is telling you that it's okay. And yes, maybe it's fruitless, but we're creating jobs. We're creating jobs, damn it. And jobs are what people need. And so now we have a lot of people at TSA, and they might not be keeping us safe. And yeah, they're creating these huge, bloated databases full of crap information that is going to be used to obfuscate. Yes, used as a digital camouflage for more terror in this country. If you think that's okay because it was well-intentioned, I I almost want to say go kill yourself, but I'm not going to, because that would just be another burden on the people around you that probably rely on you for some kind of financial obligation. So it's just that's you're either one of those people or you're not. To bring it back full circle, you either go with logic, you either use the trivium, you either use your brain in that capacity, or you don't. And you can't really get in a debate with people that just don't use logic. And if you do, you'll find yourself at the other end of that spectrum, because now you're debating with some idiot that's not using logic. So what does that make you? An idiot for debating with somebody who doesn't use logic. So when it comes to the whole security industrial complex, the creation of this behemoth, okay, and we're still hemorrhaging cash, $6 trillion. Keep counting. Keep counting. Look at what's happening in the Middle East. If we try to write that with more war, with more occupation, and more U.S. dollars, and more debt, okay, the debt is the debt has reached the point where they don't count the debt anymore. This is amazing that nobody's talking about it. And it's a quick sidebar, but we have been at the same national debt level, $16.78 trillion, for going on 80 days now. Nobody has noticed that we are not moving the debt. The debt has just stopped. They just turned it off. Who has the power to turn off the debt clock? Who? Who has the power? Who is number two working for? I mean, it's a grand question. How can you just turn off the debt clock? It's like somebody just turned off gravity one day. They just turned it off and nobody knows what's happening. It's almost like that ridiculous show where the electricity goes out that all these people are watching, Evolve, or the event, or I don't remember. I watched the pilot and the acting was so bad that I just gave up on it. Though a lot of my friends that are more of the survivalist prepper type watch it. Like, oh, it's so great. If we could just go back 500 years, people would evolve again. I don't know. Maybe we do have to have a lights out situation to cleanse. But then you're hopping. You might as well just jump on to the eugenics bandwagon. Unfortunately, and I think we all get a little gray hair from the idiots in society that you can't logically debate with. But that's why you listen to this podcast. So I do want to talk about the hemorrhaging of people in government. We're creating new jobs. We're creating the expansion of the new IRS system, the prison IRS system, where they work with the DEA and they work with your local law enforcement to terrorize you and chastise you and to shake you down for every penny because they owe a lot of people. They owe the Rothschild banking syndicate all of your cash dollars for the never-ending debt. That scam. Well, that's expanding. And then that creates revenue and jobs. I can't argue that. Creates a police state. We're living in it. The New York Times, the LA Times, big newspapers are now saying, welcome to the police state. They're about 12 years late to the game, but I appreciate the analysis. Thanks. You were defending it 10 years ago when they were building all of this crap. I'm glad to see you are canting now. I'm glad to see that now it's popular to talk about the police state and the loss of freedom in this country, that you have all of these people hopping on board. Thanks, Rolling Stone. Please articulate how I've been screwed and tell me more about the tyranny that I can do nothing about. Love it. Love it. Well, anyway, you may have noticed that not only have we had a huge exodus of bankers from the banking sector, which seems kind of looming, there's a foreboding fear there, but we also have a hemorrhaging of top brass in the military. 90% of NSA analysts are being fired. What is going to be the reaction to that from the hacktivist community and those that are in the tech ops world? It's a grand question. How many of the sysadmins out there are taking note that you can't trust the government? What does that mean? Does that mean that we're going to have more people defecting? We're going to have more Snowdens and others in powerful positions that really are the hierarchy. In a world that's controlled by technology, the people that control the machines, they really control a lot. The government has to give some of the power and control to those people. They have to make them stakeholders in the system because they need them. Because if you listen to Dianne Feinstein, she wants to regulate blogging and the internet and whistleblowing, and she wants to create certain journalist licenses. Michigan's talked about it. There's places in South America. Chile, I think, is one. Brazil, you get a little license. You pay a little tax, a little fee. They give you a badge. You can do that in this country. I mean, AP and Reuters and a bunch of other PR, Newswire. You can get these pseudo credentials that allow you into certain events. And if you play by the rules and you act real nice and you throw softball questions at Henry Kissinger, they'll invite you back. But anyway, the media has noted and picked up on the fact that we have this hemorrhaging of top brass, military generals. I mean, right before the Snowden leaks came out, Obama fired nearly all of the key intelligence advisory board members. Did you hear about this? Tech Dirt illuminates us. Remember last week's press conference where President Barack Obama insisted that he had already kicked off the process of a major review of the way we do intelligence and surveillance in this country? Do you remember? Oh, yeah, that was when your heart was warmed. You felt so good inside. You're like, thank you, Obama. I'm so glad that we're now having this national discussion on my privacy. Thank you, Obama. You may have noticed that. Well, right. The same review group that was set up to report to James Clapper, but the White House assures us that it's not going to be run by him. Why? Because people immediately threw up their arms and went to the internet and griped in unison, in concert, about James Clapper because, of course, he just lied to Congress. Nobody believes this guy. This is a new era. This is why Kerry, Clinton, all of these creeps, they are so offended. If you just go back 10 years ago, nobody minded the fact that George W. Bush wanted to appoint Henry Kissinger to look into the attacks of 9/11. I mean, there were people that were raging, on forums and on the internet, but it wasn't this huge outcry. Now you have somebody like James Clapper. I mean, they're being taunted. People are not falling for this stuff. At least the people that are watching, the silent or maybe vocal majority of people that disapprove of these lies. And we do have a lot of short-term memory in this country. Okay, we forget what happened. We forget our history easily, but we can't forget a lie that just happened last week. And people are going to forgive Hillary Clinton for lying about being under fire in Lebanon in 2016 when she's running for president. They're not going to go look at that. They're not going to ask whether or not she was a good mother to Chelsea. They're not going to ask any of those questions because we forgot. We're not going to ask about the Rose Law Firm or the Clinton death count. Yes, they do have the death count. You can just Google that or use Start Page or whatever your preferred search engine may be. And the deaths from Vince Foster on are, I don't know, pretty apparent, especially with Vince Foster. I don't want to sidebar into all the people that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton have killed in their path to create this multi-billion-dollar Clinton Global Initiative. But some people think that they're very nice philanthropists and good liberals. So, anyway, I could just go off on this all day long. I mean, because they personally irritate me, and I have a personal issue with Slick Willie, who I did end up, when I was 18 years old, the very first time I could vote, I voted for. I will be honest. Full disclosure, I voted for him because he played the saxophone on the late night show. And that, to me, is a huge indicator as to how other people operate, because that's how I operated. That's how I used to be. That's how I used to feel about the world when I was 18 years old. People are changing the way they feel about things, the way that they feel about the NSA, the way that they feel about Obama, the way that they feel about their privacy. CVS thinks as much, and I like this because it's just straight to your face. CVS thinks that $50 is enough of a reward for you giving up all of your health care privacy. Since February, if you didn't know this, and you may go to CVS, the CVS Caremark has been pushing its pharmacists to enroll customers in a prescription drug rewards program. Hey, how many people are on the drugs? Lots of people. Whether it's blood pressure medication, you probably see the pharmacist a lot unless you're using one of those online services. The benefit to customers is the opportunity to earn up to $50 a year in store credits that can be used to buy cool stuff like shampoo, toothpaste, and other things that you can find at the CVS pharmacy. Not beer, or maybe, I don't know. Some of them do have alcoholic beverages because people shop there. The pharmacy's turning into the store, and now the stores all have pharmacies. Seems to work out. You go to Walmart, you can get a tire, you can get you some cheap Monsanto food, you can hit the Super McDonald's in the back, and on your way out you can get your diabetes medication. It's a one-stop shop. It's the mom and pop killer. It's Walmart. So those CVS. This is just one of many, many examples. This came out of the LA Times, and Consumerist is a great website to follow if you want to keep up with all the shenanigans of the corporations and how they are exploiting people. $50 in rewards, but guess what? They keep track of everything you buy. And when you use the rewards card, when you go buy some condoms or heating lubricated gel, because they sell that there too, they will know that you may need, based on your age, you may need that pill, that certain purple pill that takes care of your indigestion. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So, yeah, it's a shift. It's a shift. People are like, well, it's no big deal. I mean, they know everything. They're already shopping my medical records to insurance companies. Don't know why I'm paying $500 premiums. I don't know why I'm paying almost double what I was paying 5 years ago. Well, it could be that the insurance company knows everything about you, more about you than you know that they know about you. Oh, yeah. But you got to save a few bucks. So, when I go buy my herpes medication, I never do it on a card. Wink, wink, just kidding. We can't laugh at ourselves and laugh at the police state, then what can we laugh at? This came out of The Guardian today. NSA revelations of privacy breaches, the tip of the iceberg, Senate duo. Now, I don't know how this could be the tip of the iceberg, because basically we have found out that just about everything that we do through any kind of electronic communication is subject to inspection. Google Mail, Gmail. Google said, hey, you don't have any reasonable expectation of using our free email service of having privacy. What are you talking about? It's our service. We own these servers. Are you kidding me? Now, they weren't that vocal, but, I mean, that's what I would think if I was running some email service. LavaBit, which was an email service that apparently Edward Snowden was using, has decided to shut down. The owner-operator now wondering, or at least giving... which seems somewhat staged, his own death sentence by inviting this idea that he could go to jail for what he has done. And he said that so many times. It's like, bro, don't invite that. Don't tell people, well, I could be in jail. And if you are, why? Why are you doing this? Stop it. Use some common sense. Don't tell people. Don't indict yourself. Well, I could go to jail because I did X, Y, Z. Yeah, have a little candor. Wasn't your whole service about privacy? Wasn't it about getting around NSA surveillance? Wasn't it about going under the wire? And now you're telling everybody, well, I could go to jail. And I mean, maybe if you're trying to create this buzz around yourself, I don't know. I mean, going to jail, That is a popular way to project or to let people know that you're legitimate, that you're real, that you're not compromised, and that you're a hero. And so you see that a lot. Most really famous activists at some point have to rage against the state and record that and put that out there for people, because it does two things. And agent provocateurs as well. It proves that they are not compromised because they're willing to do the time, or at least a little time. And so people give that more legitimacy. It's a pretty simple tactic. Anyway, the fact that American people are just now starting to get this is I think kind of sad, because why would you have any reasonable expectation? This has to be a crusher of dreams for those that want to live. It's hard because people want anonymity, they want privacy, but they want their gadgets and gadgets. They want their toys. So how can you have both in this society? It's very hard. It's very hard, and it's very confusing to people because they want to use their smartphone, but they also want privacy. They also don't want Facebook broadcasting their private information. So it's a struggle. Oh, I want Facebook, but I hate Facebook. I want it, but I hate it. Oh. Well, yeah, it really comes down to you making those personal decisions as to what you give to the machine, to the Leviathan. Anyway, out of The Guardian, 2 U.S. senators of the Intelligence Committee said on Friday that thousands of annual violations by the NSA on its own restrictions were, quote, the tip of the iceberg, end quote. Quote, the executive branch has now confirmed that the rules, regulations, and court-imposed standards for protecting the privacy of Americans have been violated thousands of times each year, end quote, says Ron Wyden, Mark Udall, and others, many others. Washington Post is broadcasting this story, and these are the latest revelations from documents provided by Edward Snowden. Quote, we have previously said that the violations of these laws and rules were more serious than had been acknowledged, and we believe Americans should know that this confirmation is just the tip of a larger iceberg, end quote. Now, the one thing that they haven't talked about is the medical records, okay, because that's where it gets really, really personal. And there are tons of privacy laws, state laws, federal laws. Well, it's going to be quite a legal showdown if the American people find out that everything that they do with their doctor, with their psychiatrist, because everybody's on some kind of happy pill. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of stuff to be depressed about. And we have a society that encourages people to look for pharmaceutical solutions to their very personal, human, and non-pharmaceutical problems. And you know, I try not to throw too much criticism or too much mud at people that are on psychotropic drugs or other mind-altering chemicals, because I do the same thing in my own life. I medicate myself when I can't sleep. I have a couple bourbons and water, maybe some Irish whiskey. I am a huge fan of tequila. And so, do I need a sleeping pill that's going to make me freak out or give me stomach lesions? No, I just, maybe 2 fingers of scotch, maybe some chamomile tea, maybe some melatonin. I mean, there's plenty of things that are mind-altering that I do in my own life. And I think that it's kind of human. It's a human condition. I mean, that's medicine. You go to the store and buy aspirin. The new debate, the new push is towards medical marijuana. Now that Sanjay Gupta has talked about weed as a medical prospect and has done some real hard-hitting evidence or documentary, now people can start. They're trying to give the veil of legitimacy to that as a medical solution. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing amoral about it is amoral. It's not a moral issue. It does highlight how well the Hearst Publishing Company, yellow journalism, and skewed government statistics have shaped the perception of morality around using marijuana, using cannabis. The perception was, most of it was based on racism, that it makes people crazy and jump out of windows. The perception that it kills brain cells. Oh, yeah. It creates short-term memory loss. It's the only thing that people really try to hold on to, is that it kills brain cells. But if you actually look at the study that was done during the Reagan era, during the Just Say No campaign, you'll find out that the monkeys that they used to test and measure the brain cells of were choked for 5 minutes at a time, sometimes longer, with gas masks filled with burning marijuana smoke. Now, let's think about that for a moment, because how else are you going to get a monkey to smoke weed? They can get them to smoke cigarettes, so I guess it wouldn't be too hard to get them to actually do this, because we all saw that back, people didn't, when it was funny and cute. I remember seeing lots of black and white cartoons and the depictions of smoking monkeys and apes, and so I don't think it's beyond the realm of science to be able to do this. And they probably are doing it somewhere. I mean, I would bet you my house that somewhere there's somebody with a monkey that's smoking weed right now, and they're doing weird tests to it. And why wouldn't they be, right? I mean, that's really the grand question. Monsanto probably has hybrid weed they're giving to the monkeys and getting them wasted and baked. Well, those same kind of companies helped do this research for the U.S. government, and they employed some pretty pitiful tactics, and that was to choke these monkeys. They choked the monkeys for 5 minutes at a time with marijuana smoke, basically depriving them of oxygen. And when you suffocate mammals, they lose brain cells. Brain cells die. When you suffocate, when you don't breathe, when you stop breathing for 5 minutes at a time, you're going down, and you're going to lose a lot of them, millions of brain cells. And we shed those every day, but actually the ironic truth to all of it is that it actually creates brain cells. It's the one thing in the world that you can do that'll actually create brain cells. Okay, there's nothing else in the world that they have proven has the ability to actually create brain cells in the brain. So that's a travesty on so many levels, that we adopted stupid propaganda for the Hearst Publishing Company, and we allowed the hemp industry to leave this country. We look for all of these solutions to economic and to the obesity problems in this country, to the ethical problems in this country, and a lot of it has to do with the way we provide ourselves health care. And that is through the AMA and many of these institutions that were created to control your health. So we have to be honest about it. And so now people are, really taking a second look, and I'm glad that this is changing. But I'm also very weary of the regulations and the way that this will be used, because anything that's not under government control, I've already mentioned it one time today, is out of control. So that is the viewpoint. I did want to bring this back to the NSA scandal for a moment before we sidebarred there, and just talk about Justin Amash. He's become a new hero on the scene. You may have heard of him, Representative Justin Amash. He's a Republican in Michigan. He had a very profound statement. He said, quote, "This is what happens when you have secret laws," end quote. And isn't that so true? When you have government that's out of control, it's because there's secret laws. How can you have any expectation of legitimacy of a government of the people, regulated thereby of the laws of the land, if it has secret laws? I'm glad somebody has has brought this. One representative has brought this to our attention, and it's Justin Amash. He's an ardent opponent of the NSA's bulk private data collection program. It's being outsourced, by the way. We should note that, and I have some other revelations, but he's the latest to really bring some political dialogue to what's happening there. So he's going to be getting a lot more attention and focus. And, well, he's stating the obvious, but I appreciate it, I suppose. We do need a few people that are bringing up these issues. I mean, once you have secret government, it's the rest of the charade. It's hard to re-engage in the political analysis and the dialogue and the rest that people like Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck are able to do because of that overwhelming truth. So how do they do it? How can they sidebar all of these laws, and why are you not able to put some of these people in jail? Well, Susan Posel actually has a pretty good piece here that we reposted from Occupy Corporatism. IBM acquires cybersecurity software corporation to share with U.S. government. IBM is at the forefront of this, and they just purchased a company called Trusteer. It's an Israeli software developer corporation that focuses on cybersecurity and fraud prevention. Wink, wink. Headquarters will remain in Tel Aviv, along with the research and development facilities. Now, why would IBM want to have their facilities outside of this country? Just like the GCQH corporation, private contractor, was collecting data for the NSA in Europe. Why? Well, because it's a skirting of law. They can do this outside of the country, and it makes it a private operation, not a U.S. government operation. So the government itself is not spying on you, and they can lay claim to that. We're not spying on you, but IBM is. We're not spying on you, but CVS is. We would never spy on you. That's disgusting. But all of our friends over at Wackenhut, or whoever it may be, SAIC International, they are doing it. And it's interesting because technology plays such a huge role in our lives. And, you know, I'm a guy that's a big fan of technology. That's how I make my livelihood in this world where we provide more technological solutions to human problems. That is primarily what I do. I look at things very analytically. I have to troubleshoot. I have to design and build and create systems that are, number one, going to be very efficient. You want something that's efficient. You don't want to buy a bunch of things that you don't need and design a plan for some kind of system that is not going to work. It's pretty much common sense. Number two, it's got to be cost effective. Always. That's probably paramount in most people's minds. Cost effective. And number three, it has to be reliable. It has to be a system that is going to help you, whether it's a fire alarm system, a security system, automated logic system for your HVAC systems at a commercial building, for a event center. Worked on all of those types of platforms, hospitals. You have to build a system, and when it breaks, okay, you have to look at it very analytically. You have to use, some people would say, the liberal arts. We use the 6-step troubleshooting method. You can check that out. It's a great way to look at just about anything. And so it's hard for me to try to put the human emotion in many of the problems because I see them and I look at them in a very analytical way. Okay, this is the problem. We have to replace this component, this part, this piece of cable, this communication conduit, whatever it may be, to resolve the problem. It's very straightforward. Okay? We want an end result, whatever it may be. You want freedom, they want tyranny. Okay, that's the end result. So you go through this system to find what it is that is not operating in the way that you want it to operate to create that desired result. It's very, very, very simple. Okay, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what's broke and how to fix it. Most people in this country, as little credit as sometimes I give them, know what is wrong with this system. But it's very hard to change. Just because you know what the problem is doesn't mean you will change. Just because you know what the culprit may be doesn't mean that you can replace or fix what that is. Sometimes you can identify the problem. I use this metaphor often. You've figured out who the bully on the playground is, and you know that he's coming for your lunch money. But guess what? Tomorrow, you're going to have to go to that playground, and he's going to be coming for that money. And unless you devise a plan to change what's going to happen tomorrow, you know tomorrow you're going to get robbed one more time. You're going to be giving your milk money to that bully. Welcome to the IRS. There's your bully. We have to identify those people as such. Can't think that they're the good altruistic good guys that are helping you out and just taking some money from you to help out everybody. Because once you start getting into that mentality, then what else will you bend over for? What other things will you accept in this broken system? And how long will you accept this system to be broken, dilapidated, and be okay with it? How long are you going to try to interpret the end result as something that you want, even though you know it's not what you want? How long is that going to go on? Well, some people, it's gone on for an eternity. And, maybe multi-generationally. So when we look at where we're going, I think John Kerry, our man today, we've quoted several times, has a pretty good insight. Kerry said, quote, Obama will act on climate change without congressional approval. That's interesting. At a joint news conference with his Brazilian counterpart on Tuesday, Secretary of State, John Kerry praised Brazil for its commitment to climate change initiatives, and he promised that the Obama administration also is determined to do something about it. Whew, feel great. Give this guy a cape. Quote, so the challenge is ahead of us for all of us, and I know that the United States has a great commitment under President Obama to take our initiatives, not even to wait for congressional action, but to move administratively in order to do our part. I know we can continue to work with Brazil on this issue of climate, and we look forward to doing so, end quote. Well, what's he talking about? Okay, his commitment to Brazil, to climate change, supersedes your representative government. I mean, it's so forthcoming, isn't it? It's just very cut and dry, black and white. We don't need to be at the behest of the government. This isn't a three branch of government system. This isn't a constitutional republic. John Kerry told you so. Okay, and he would know. He's the Secretary of State. I mean, he's the pencil pusher for the State Department, the administration, for the regime. He's the secretary. He's the little lady that's at the desk that has the little buzzer button. The dictator's here to see you, Barack Obama. That's what he does. He's the go-to gal for those kind of situations. Now, he's on vacation. So's Obama. Egypt's on fire. Libya has oil workers that are on strike. They have a civil war that no one's talking about that's unfolding there. Syria is in such a bad way. We've now found out that over 400 surface-to-air missiles have made their way there. And you knew by listening to this podcast that DimeCorp has been on the move looking for those missiles and missile launchers for a long time. And Putin's digging his toes in. He's digging his feet in, and he's continuing to provide military assistance to Syria. Big explosion happened, killing dozens in Aleppo this week. Also, a lot of foot races with Al Qaeda and Al Nusra. Now, Ben Swan, I'm not going to play it, but he did a great job summating the terrorists, the people that we're supporting in Syria. And now they've had to basically this being the Pentagon, acquiesced to this idea that, yes, Al-Qaeda is going to end up being the ruling party, al-Nusra, which is comprised of 40% of the opposition, and almost 30% of al-Nusra is foreign. They are going to be the majority ruling party that we'll have to deal with once Bashar al-Assad is gone. Now, the only question is this worth doing to be able to give Russia another black eye to continue to encircle and isolate the bear? Well, I don't think that everyone in the Pentagon is on board with this idea anymore. And some of the fruits of what the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the CIA, of course, on the ground with the French, and Mossad and MI6, but probably MI5 as well. I mean, we even have the FBI over there, which I guess makes sense in this multi-jurisdictional system that we use to enforce international law. They're probably over there chasing down Bashar al-Assad's wife for downloading something on iTunes. She got the newest LMAFO album, and they are under sanctions. You might remember that from 18 months ago, where they were basically just calling her a trollop and trying to demonize and politically assassinate Bashar al-Assad with his music taste and liking queer music like Right Said Fred. Propaganda has definitely come a long way from that, hasn't it? Hasn't it? Yeah, some of you remember that. Oh, yeah. I want to get into this ubiquitous listening because the MIT Review did this pretty wild Moto X smartphone hackathon, and they have this Google's Motorola Mobility smartphone that's coming out. And basically, MIT said this is the era of ubiquitous listening, where basically almost everything that's happening in the world, especially in the United States, 90% of it, is being recorded all the time by smartphones. And the ability to do this and have the audio quality to actually have intelligible information being relayed to the central state facility, to Skynet all the time, is upon us. We are here. We are in the totally transparent state where we have the omnipresent, almost God-esque listening of the surveillance state. And anyway, they did this review of the phone, the OK Google Now phone that activates this software, this intelligence assistant software. It's their version of Siri. Hello, I'd like to help you find something. Thanks, Siri. But it's fun to play with Siri. She won't talk about God or politics. She's very careful. She won't tell you where the iPhones are made, how many children are used to make them. You're not going to hear anything about that. Okay, they're all over 14 years old, Doug. All right, fine. I acquiesce. Fine. They live in dorms at Foxconn. It's fine. Hey, if you're okay with suicide nets being erected around the dormitories as a preventive measure rather than just treating people like human beings, you deserve the ubiquitous tyranny that you're under now. Anyway, this is what MIT Technology Review said. Quote, this brings us closer to having phones that continually monitor their auditory environment to detect the phone's owner, voice, discern what room or their setting the phone is in, or pick up other clues from background noise. That's right. Your Xbox Connect. Actually, interesting story about that. They've kind of... People didn't want to use it because it's always watching them, and Xbox was trying to force people, their gamers, to use the Kinect for everything, and they get kind of upset about that. They're like, hey, man, can I opt out of this? I don't want the Kinect. I don't want the conductivity constantly. I don't want the biometric sensors watching my every move. I'm just, not interested in that. I just wanted to virtually kill some people through my screen, my telescreen here. I didn't really want you to assess whether or not I have a dog in my home, or if I have children, and change the PG rating on my TV or my Time Warner box here, because all of those technologies are available. But people, by and large, even though that they are available, are kind of resisting it. They don't want it. And can you blame them? I wouldn't want it either. The only reason that I haven't jumped into the smartphone realm is that I just don't want to give that much more information to another telecommunications company that's working in tandem with my government to incriminate me and selectively enforce special rules just for Doug Owen and maybe his podcast listeners. I'm good on that. I'm fine. So, we're seeing the tech realm have to kind of push back in all of this technology. I mean, I think it's important to understand this, that it's all new to the human race. All of these things, they're new. We haven't been able to assess the pros and cons of being plugged in and turned on 24 hours a day, being a part of this collective conscious that is being connected through technology. So, there's so much tech stuff that we publish because I find it so interesting. Of course, the parallels, the responsibility that is required. If you have the technology, you have power, but you also can become victim to others that have power over you through these technologies. It's that simple. You, at this point, are still able to control the interface. And that's where I think a lot of people are jumping off the bandwagon. Once Google's mission, and this was Eric Schmidt's comment a few years back, but basically the idea is that Google would be able at some point to tell you everything that you should do and everything that you want to do before you could make that decision. Google would have that much precognitive intelligence that the music you wanted to go see, the live show, the bars that you wanted to drink at, maybe the sandwich shop you want to have lunch at, that it would know that before you would know that because Google just knows you that well. If that ever came to fruition, if Google was ever that smart, that means you're Googling a little too much, right? That means that you're giving a little bit too much information to Google. Now, that is their stated goal, or at least Eric Schmidt's. And I don't know, maybe the plan's changed. Things are living documents, living forces, and the forces of course, popular purchasing of products changes their overall goals and missions. I mean, the CIA is in these joint ventures like 23andMe and QIntel and other things with Google and the like. But if they're not making profit, people aren't buying it if they don't want it. That's a problem, too. They unveiled the new North Korean smartphone, which is on an Android platform. People are, at least getting a kick out of looking at this smartphone that they're going to give to the North Koreans. So if you think about the most controlled internet that there is in the world, and a government that has to maintain relevance, has to keep everyone in constant fear of dying, and that that their dear leader is their god, it's North Korea. And I look at how bad could it get, right? What could be the worst government you could ever dream of? The Orwellian nightmare, give it whatever term you want, the total surveillance society, the end of freedom, and the rise of dictatorship. I can't think of anywhere better than North Korea. That's the worst case of central planning, insane governmental delusions gone awry, a starving population living vicariously through their chunky pop culture icon, god, cult of personality, Kim Jong-un. And their fancy smartphones that only play music and have the only pictures that they could have is of him. Yeah, that's. I don't know if it goes any farther than that, or it can go any farther than that. I mean, that's the line where you once you go there, that's it. It can't get any worse. You can't have a society that's any more petrified, where if you don't cry enough for the dead leader, you go to jail, where if you don't have enough empathy for Big Brother, if you don't love Big Brother, they re-educate not only you, your children, your grandmother, your mother-in-law. I mean, that's it. So, yeah, there's other things in the technology realm. Device had this one. Selling the chip, brain implant could turn you into one of the X-Men. And, we used to joke about this, and I think that a lot of people, including myself, did take it very, 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 very seriously in the late 90s and early 2000s, that the mark of the beast and the chip was upon us and that people would be chipping human beings. And that's been an ongoing kind of conspiratorial meme, right? The becoming a mind slave, having the chip, having this technology that, of course, God had warned us about, so it gives it the biblical prophecy aspect to it. It's here. Now, they can't sell you the chip that way, although being fearful of the chip has been sold to people like me in the alternative media for quite a while, and I agree with it. I don't think of it in the biblical prophecy aspect of that because, you go throughout history, the Chinese and the Europeans, once they found themselves at the mercy of Genghis Khan and the Mongols, believed that was Gog and Magog, that the gates of hell had been opened up, the raping and pillaging and killing of 16 to 30 million people seemed at the time to those people that this is hell. This is this is what has been predicted in the end times. These are demon people that are coming out of the woodwork that are killing us and raping our children. And it's not funny, but that's just how life was for many people at that time. And so you look at that and you think, wow, those people believed that was it. That was it. And for them, it was. For them, it was the end of the world. The world had changed. Everything was different. And once those ties had been opened up, those doors, those gates, those walls to the Mongols, life was different. There's a lot of takeaways throughout history in that sense, where people have predicted end times, the end of the world. And quite literally, from their viewpoint, it was that. That was reality. So, anyway, the end of the world may not be upon us, but that doesn't mean that we aren't moving into this transhumanist society, and they're selling it. Okay, imagine this. TSA agents with enhanced senses of smell, emergency responders that can hear sounds clearly from beneath rubble and dirt, and cab drivers always knowing the direction of true north. How'd you like that? That's pretty handy-dandy. Oh, these are little upgrades. This might sound like an issue of a popular comic book series, the X-Men, but scientists at Duke University are experimenting with brain implant devices that could make these things possible in the real world and without the need to be born a mutant. Oh, good. You don't have to drink the Fukushima Daiichi reactor water to become an X-Man, to become a mutant, to have super crazy possibilities and senses. Or, and I like the fact that they're selling it through the TSA because all of us want the TSA to be able to smell bombs better. I guess in a certain kind of weird way, if you look at it, that might be better than them touching you. Okay, if you could smell them, okay. Maybe you could be like a deer or a dog and smell fear. How'd you like to be able to do that? You can smell somebody's, bees, they claim, and wasps and other insects can smell fear. I don't know how much of that's urban legend debunked now, how much of it's relevant. Many of the things that I've heard when I was a kid, and my mother told me because she was told it, and her mother was told that, and it was in a dictionary somewhere, has been debunked. Really upset to hear that Stegosaurus, even Brontosaurus, and some of these other dinosaurs that I had T-shirts of are not really correct. I just put these things together and kind of went with it. I'm like, oh, well, the Brontosaurus wasn't quite the dinosaur that we thought, and we actually stuck the wrong head on him, and, all of those things that you learned, all of those things that were ingrained into your head and my head when I was a kid, some of those are very, very, very incorrect. I talk about this often. Some of the things that we learn, and now, thanks to the internet, we all know, and we can prove to ourselves. So, the amount of technology that is going to be going into changing human beings, making us better, making us more than what we are today, more than human, are well on their way, and people are excited about it. People are really excited about it. I don't know, because I do believe that technology is inert. I do believe that technology is only able to do good or bad depending on the person that's using it. Nuclear energy can enrich and empower people's lives, and you can also have the Fukushima scenario. Those are you have to be very careful with the decisions you make. Those are very powerful technologies, and we jumped in just a matter of time and just started building those reactors all over the place, and then people didn't want to, the profit motive, the profit potential that was there allowed them to push these reactors farther than they should have ever been pushed, longer than they were ever designed for, and even when it comes to Fukushima, which is in complete disarray, and it should be mentioned that they're coming up with crazy ideas like ice walls, trying to a liquid ice wall to encapsulate all of the liquid from the reactor. Why? Now, some people believe it was intentional. Some people believe that the tsunami bomb was launched. And yes, the U.S. and Israeli governments have worked and built and created tsunami bombs. Just because they have the technology doesn't mean that they did it necessarily. But I think that any question and the questioning of those in power, those that benefit from these disasters, should be explored. Absolutely. And so I'm not on board with the most zany, wacky conspiracy theories, but I don't think that you should dismiss or diminish the potential for it, considering the people in power and the fact that a good majority are psychopaths. You just have to kind of put that at the forefront of your mind when you look at anything. Hey, this, even though it doesn't, it doesn't seem like it could be possible, it absolutely could be possible. And the bigger the lie, the easier it is to swallow. That's been misquoted and paraphrased from Hitler and others over and over again, but the point is very, very valid. And as we move forward, more and more people are going to want to make themselves better. I mean, you see it now. I mean, look at the media culture. Look at the sales of makeup. Billions of dollars, ladies, to look pretty. And that's just what people do to make themselves look a little bit better. Now, what would you do to make yourself smarter, to give yourself 40 IQ points, to make your eyes see beyond 20/20, to give yourself X-ray vision? And in a world where we are dominated by we dominate others by being competitive, we see the world excel, technology excel because of, I think, the competitive drive. Where does that take us? I mean, you see it with the steroid scandals in Major League Baseball, in performance-enhancing drugs. People are taking PEDs to make themselves better, to make more money, to be able to be more competitive, to be able to play longer, to live better. I'm not even going to get into the moral issue or the ethical issue. I believe personally, though, that if you can make yourself stronger and extend your baseball career and make millions of dollars more, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to feel better when you wake up in the morning? When your body is what makes you money. Now, you can extend that to brain implants. Same exact thing. What if I'm a baseball player and I want to be able to see that ball just a little bit better? Well, I don't think that we're going to be brain chipping any baseball players anytime soon. But it brings up that question of what are you willing to do? What are people willing to do to enhance themselves, to extend their lives, to create an ego boost for themselves? To people that believe that they are special, now they can be special. It's bad enough some people believe they're better than you. Now people may be better than you. Designer babies, all of those are on the prowl. They're all out there. They are being promoted. So this idea that X-Men, you could be an X-Man, that's going to get lots of funding, and DARPA interested in these ideas because, unfortunately, everything's weaponized. You know, every technology we have today, it's like, ooh, we figured out how to cheetah runs. Let's turn it into a ubiquitous killing machine. let's give it autonomous decision making and let it decide if you're an infidel or somebody that needs to die. Because then we can take the human element out of it, and then you blame it on the calculator rather than the mathematician. It seems like a good idea, so they're going to sell it to you. You can be an X-Man. Well, funny enough, Al-Qaeda has the exact same idea. Al-Qaeda faction in Syria hands out Teletubbies and Spider-Man dolls. So they're not the only people that are using pop culture and comic book stars to push their creepy agenda. So is Al-Qaeda. An Al-Qaeda-affiliated group, they're allied with them in Syria, has been using Tinky Winky to fight for hearts and minds of the Syrian children. And I don't know, I have to play the clip, although I can, where the kids are singing about Al-Qaeda and the bombs falling, or the buildings falling in New York City, and death to America. And these are the people that we're giving money to. If you haven't seen those videos, there's tons of them. And if you want to, engulf yourself today in watching the state kill activists and those that want accountability, you're going to be able to see that in Egypt. But it's funny to me because we have, maybe not funny, maybe that's too insensitive. The parallels are stunning between the way that the West uses propaganda and mind-altering techniques to reach the children and how that is mimicked by Al-Qaeda and others. It's an institution in and of itself that extends globally. How do you get the kids killing other kids? Get them to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, make them think that they're better than all the other people, and all the other people around there are the cause for their problems, so they need to die. I mean, it's pretty simple recipe for state-run propaganda, and it's effective. It's noteworthy, and the funny thing is that when we see Al-Qaeda do it, people are, oh, this is horrible. Oh, how can they use Spider-Man and Tinky Winky to, get kids to put in Bobby bombs and other things to take down airliners in the United States of America? Oh, this is horrible. I'm appalled. This is the Washington Post, by the way. They're freaked out about Al-Qaeda using Teletubbies. But let's just harken back to G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe, who is a real American hero. Okay, now he's probably a new international global terror fighter. I think that's his new moniker. He's no longer yours, America. G.I. Joe's bigger than America. He's fighting Al-Qaeda, and he's also funding Al-Qaeda because, sometimes you have to fund the enemy of your enemy. So he's using clandestine techniques and other improvised tactics for his kinetic strike force. That's the kind of crap they're pushing in the comic books, and I don't comment on it a lot, but Superman has now renounced his U.S. citizenship. What do you say about that? I mean, is this just politics playing out in the comic books, or are they trying to teach? And here's the other thing. Kids aren't reading comic books anyway, so using comic books in this country as a way to indoctrinate children worked when I was a kid because we read comic books and we had Boy's Life, the Boy Scout magazine, and I believed that you could build a hovercraft out of a vacuum because there were designs and plans in the back of Boy's Life that led me to believe that this was possible. Though as an adult, I am deeply remiss that you cannot use a $50 vacuum cleaner to build yourself a hovercraft. some of you are probably laughing because you remember this. You're like, oh, yeah, I believe that crap. And I gave some stupid company $5. And it should have been a wake-up call to me that I was being sold a bunch of crap. Now, they didn't put it at the front of the magazine. They put it all in the back, all of it in the back. And that was the most interesting portion of any one of those little magazines that were designed for children at the time. Sports Illustrated and Channel 1 came out in the 90s, and it was forced upon all of us. They gave all of the school districts free TVs in every room. And this is really how the rollout of the television and education happened in the 90s. Some of you Gen Xers may be familiar with this, but Channel 1 was just a bunch of Skittles commercials. They would tell you a little bit about the space program, a little bit about NASA, and it was used as a way to sell the first Iraq war. And I remember being in 7th grade, and our history teacher, who was an alcoholic, who had a bottle of gin in the back of the classroom, he died of liver cirrhosis, not there too long after I graduated his course, where he indoctrinated us into an anti-establishment viewpoint. He showed us things like Oliver Stone's JFK film, and it got us questioning the state and Vietnam. I have to give him a lot of credit. But he was very upset about Channel 1, and we had these discussions. Do you know anybody that's in the war? Do you have any family that's going to Iraq? We were all watching it like it was a freaking spectacle. Get the popcorn. We're at war. It's been a long time. It's been too long almost. It's time to get more war and get the kids involved. Now, I should have known better. And now, in retrospect, you see it all, don't you? You see every aspect of it. You see how you were being sold. You see how they use these very simple and rudimentary techniques and tactics to get you to buy into things that are just lies. And it doesn't matter where they sell the lies, whether it's the back of the magazine or right there in the front. If it's on the cover, there's deceptions hidden within that as a young child I never expected. But now, looking back, I wonder why I ever anticipated or had some reasonable expectation that people that I trusted were telling me the truth. That's the hardest thing for some people to admit to themselves, because we like to believe that we're right. Scientifically, we are designed to believe that we're right, and that is something that helps us not only be successful, but to survive. To question yourself is to question what you have done to keep yourself alive on planet Earth. And in simpler times, with less technology, having that drive and having that mindset may have set you apart from others. So there is that. I want to thank all of you for listening to the podcast, downloading it. We're towards the end of the show. I wanted to mention Hunter Lewis, who sent us 2 books, Crony Capitalism in America. I started reading this, and Pay to Play, Capitol Hill Primer, the whole system of crony capitalism in America is kind of laid out here. And I haven't been paid any endorsement fee money for it, but a pretty interesting book. He also sent me another one that he has called Free Prices Now, Fixing the Economy by Abolishing the Fed. And these are advanced copies for reading, so maybe we'll have him on the show. But I do want to thank him for it. I want to give credit where credit's due. I want to thank the people that sponsored the show this week. We had one great donation from a guy named Charlie, and Charlie donated $55 via blacklistednews.com. So thank you, Charlie. And I did want to mention that I went and bought Dylan Radigan's book, and I've mentioned him on the show. And the story of Dylan Radigan, a guy that was there on the ground at 9/11, who was in the financial world, the media world, and who pretty much narrated the chaos, who was an insider, who saw what was happening, who decided to then become a farmer. Regardless of how maybe scripted the story, and I always wonder, maybe, or the narrative itself, how genuine. But Dylan Radigan, somebody that I do have a lot of respect for, and he has this book called Greedy Bastards. I bought it on Amazon. If you're going to go there, you should use one of the affiliated links at blacklistednews.com. It's called Greedy Bastards, How We Can Stop Corporate Communists, Banksters, and Other Vampires from Sucking America Dry is the name of this. And so just that phraseology caught my eye, and I have been reading this. Great bathroom read, great lazy boy or even Shea lounger type material. Really funny and very pragmatic. Something that I think you can hand to anybody out there that feels that the system is too big, out of control, and out of the American people's hands, and therefore needs to be readdressed, and we have to reevaluate what it is that we think about the state. So I've been reading that. It's really great. There's a couple other mentions I had that I always save towards the end of the show. I'm actually debating, and that's why I leave this at the end of the show, because the people that really like this podcast, they make it to the end. People, the newcomers, the people that just happen upon it, they usually click out during. If they're going to click off, they're going to do it during the beginning. So there's no point in just berating them with this inside baseball stuff. But I've been offered a weekday slot on, or not a weekday slot, a weekend slot on a very popular alternative media radio network. I've thought about doing it because people do like the live aspect of the show. There's already a large built-in audience, and it would give me the opportunity to reach more and more people. I do, however, have some reservations because, of course, there is always a compromise. Commercials. Being kind of held to this time constraint, whereas I think I've been just as productive and prolific with the podcast, controlling it myself completely from the time I do it to when we produce and put it out, having all of those aspects of it somewhat micromanaged and handled by myself is something that I really like, though the response and support for the show itself has been waning. The amount of listeners, and I think that this is reasonable, but the amount of listeners is excelling every week, from thousands to now tens of thousands of downloads on a weekly basis, which is phenomenal. By any metric, we are going in the right direction with the message, and I think that people honestly want this kind of commentary, no compromise, tired of that commercial format. So I have a lot of reservations about maybe doing that again, but at the same time, there's a lot of lack of support, I think, for these independent broadcasts, and I understand there's a lot of people out there that vie for time, and I just appreciate people giving me their time, because at the end of the day, that's the most precious thing that we have in this world. Time is money, time is life, time is what you have, and it's what every person that's alive is running out of as we speak. So we're here at the 2-hour point. If you want to support us, go to blacklistedраdio.com. Several ways to make donations. You can make them by physical mail to our P.O. box if you like. You send me your book, your stuff, your inside info, things that you want us to highlight, things that you want to share. You can physically send it to me, whether it's a book, whether it's we've received videos, we've received a bunch of different things in the mail that just trying to think of all the different mediums that you could share with somebody. But if you want those highlighted and brought to potentially tens of thousands of people, maybe, that make it to the end of this show, at least thousands make it to the end, you can do so. The P.O. box, all of that stuff is at blacklistedраdio.com. You can also make monetary donations. And if you think that PayPal sucks, you're not alone. There's other alternatives like WePay, Amazon Payments, and, of course, if you're old school, you might actually have a checkbook. You could use that as well, and all of that's appreciated. And I think that in a world that's dominated by money, that's how you have to gauge what you're doing. If people appreciate it, if they find value in this, then they will give you value back. It's the value for value model. Stole it from Adam Curry, propagating it from their model of doing a podcast, which I'm a big fan of. And I tried not to let bleed into this show too much because to do this, you also have to, and I am just like you out there listening, I am also a consumer of media. I also enjoy and love and have my own favorite podcast. I share great aspects of them and them themselves with this audience, because if you find this show interesting, you would probably find the shows that I find interesting and running counter to the official narrative of value to you. So we do that. And I think that is why we set this show apart. But at the same time, you want to make sure, I want to make sure that people do find value in it, and if I am not going in the right direction or just talking about crap that you don't find to be interesting at all, you rather hear more stuff from the Hill, more politicking. We welcome those comments, and feedback is your feedback is more than a donation. Just telling me if you find value in it. And it's been great to do the Doomcast because getting a lot of feedback on the YouTube commentary through the Spreaker channel as well on that. So love to hear what people think because it is about starting conversations. This show is a monologue, usually, unless we have guests, and it's good to know. Did you like Lee Rogers last week? Kind of pushing it to the bleeding edge, taking on some topics in a very brash and forward way. Because Lee, he'll tell you how it is. And there's plenty of other people that we can interview and bring to the show. But, a lot of people have told me, I just like the monologue. I like the fact that you wrap up the news, you get straight to it. So, your voice is what you have to speak your mind, is to give consent or to take your consent from those that govern and those that inform. So, your voice is very, very powerful, and we love hearing it. And with all of that said, hope you guys have a great week. It's going to be a really interesting one. A lot of stuff that's going to be happening next week. We'll catch up with TPP. I've got a few guests that are scheduled for impromptu interviews. I've got 2 of them this week coming up. I'm going to shoot out the newsletter. If you haven't subscribed, you should do that as well. And then don't forget, Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, and other time zones, you have to do the math. I will be live with Charlie McGrath and the Doomcast. Episode number 4 will be there. You can go to doomcast.com. And also, I want to know what you think about doing a live show on one of those big radio networks that you already probably listen to a little bit. Shoot me your feedback. Doug@blacklistednews.com is the place to do that. And I want to give my beautiful sister-in-law a loving and warming happy birthday. Today is her birthday, and she has been very quiet in the background, so we are going to go celebrate that. And you should celebrate all of the wonderful things that are happening in your life as well. And until next time, it's Doug Owen telling you, take care, my friends, and keep it saucy.